I'm Josh. We're going to talk about trapping. Today, I'm going to be talking about some of the comments in a lot of the short trapping videos that I had made previously, because a lot of them are getting negative comments, and specifically negative about trapping. You got your usual, like, this is cruel, this is so mean, I don't like this, poor animals should not be subjected to this torture. I'm not saying it feels great to have your hand in a trap, but it ain't that bad. I did make a short video kind of about this a while ago, but there's a lot of stuff I wasn't able to put in there and stuff I couldn't really show visually just because it was a short video, and you have to keep those like confined to a certain amount of time. So I came out here today thinking, you know what, I got nothing better to do, let's go make a video about trapping. So first, right off the bat, the traps themselves are not deadly, or they're not meant to actually kill stuff or harm them. From a practical standpoint, let's say a trap was designed to break animals' bones. That wouldn't be good, because then the animal could just like rip its skin off and get away, and I don't want that to happen from a practical standpoint. I also don't want that to happen from like a moral standpoint, because I don't want some like poor little fox just bleed out somewhere. That's not why I trap. Point number one, traps are not deadly. And I'm going to leave this trap on for like a few more minutes just to show you all that. I can still move my fingers. Everything's good down there. Animals are typically only in a trap around like 8 to 12 hours. They could be in a trap up to 24, but it's usually much less than 24 hours. The law requires you to check your traps every 24 hours. Typically that's done in the morning, which is a good practice to do that in the morning, because the animals are usually more active at night. So you check your traps in the morning. That means they've only been in there for like 8 hours, maybe less. So using this Burger King cup, I'm going to show you how animal populations work. I'm going to need both hands for this one. It left a little dent in my fingers, but my fingers aren't broken. I can still move them. You look right below it, there's actually a swivel on here. There's a second swivel right below it. Then there's a swivel just before the stake, and that's going to allow whatever's in that trap to freely spin and not get tangled up or like twist his foot off. The point that I'm trying to hit on the head right now is basically that traps are not designed to cause a bunch of damage, at least not these foothold traps. Now I'm going to use this Burger King cup to explain how animal populations work. Think of this Burger King cup like an ecosystem, any given ecosystem where you might have any number of any type of animals living in it. And let's say this water that I'm pouring in here represents the number of fox that this said ecosystem can support, or raccoons, or whatever animal you want. So that right there, this full cup of water, represents the maximum carrying capacity of a certain species, we'll say fox, that can live in this ecosystem year round. Because obviously, there's only a certain number of resources, meaning that there can't just be like an exponential amount of fox to live in this ecosystem. Now, you have your carrying capacity. Throughout the year, things happen. For example, some animals are going to get hit by cars. That's going to cause some water or fox to leak out. In the case of fox, die. Some animals are going to get sick. That's going to cause more water to leak out. Or in the case of the fox, in the said hypothetical ecosystem, you're going to lose some of that population. And then let's say like wintertime rolls around and there's not as much food as there was the rest of the year. There's some of the fox are going to starve, okay, and they're going to die. Some of them might get cold and freeze. Some of them could get eaten by like hawks or coyotes. Okay, hopefully not that much, but you get the idea. And this is the population after all that terrible stuff has happened throughout the year. But spring comes around, breeding season comes around, and the fox reproduce. There's still going to be fox being lost to those environmental factors. But eventually the fox are going to keep reproducing until that carrying capacity is met. And one way or another, you're going to lose fox, because they can't just have like an infinite number of fox just chilling in my ecosystem. That's just not how it works, because resources are limited. Now let's poke another hole in there, because the whole cup ain't empty yet. So we can responsibly add another load. That was weird. We can take away responsibly a few extra fox. And that hole that I just poked right there represents people hunting and trapping. Next spring rolls around, breeding season comes, the fox reproduce. In my hypothetical ecosystem right here in this Burger King cup, the fox would reproduce all the way to the top of the cup, but I ran out of water in my watering can. But the point is that the water coming out of this hole is just less water coming out of the rest of these holes that I poked in the cup. So when you're hunting, trapping animals, I'm going to keep referring to fox, but this really works for all different animal populations. But when you hunt them or trap them, you're essentially just taking excess animals out of that population that would die anyway, due to starvation, due to disease, accidents, etc. I was wearing Crocs. I didn't even get my socks. That was pretty cool. Just to recap, essentially, unless a species is like critically endangered, in that case, then there's not going to be a trapping season for it, because this stuff is pretty heavily regulated. But everything that there is an open trapping season for, there is an abundance in population of. That being said, animal populations are at their carrying capacity most of, if not all the time. That's the reason they can be trapped and not depleted. out of the ecosystem, because essentially they would just die in. There's a reason that like we've been trapping since basically America was founded, and we still have fox and raccoon and beaver and other stuff we would trap. Now that's not to say that over trapping or over harvesting of certain things can't lead to a population decline. That definitely can happen. That happened to beaver after the fur boom in the 1800s. So many mosquitoes. But the way things are set up now with state regulations on trapping, that will likely never happen again, hopefully. Which leads us to my next point. If an animal population becomes overcrowded or they exceed the carrying capacity of what the ecosystem can provide for them, at a certain point, ecosystems become reliant on people taking some animal population out in order to maintain balance. Meaning, say if you live somewhere like this, where you've got a lot of farmland around, then there's going to be, and let's say you plant a lot of corn on said farmland, there's going to be a lot of raccoons there that otherwise wouldn't be there if there wasn't corn there, because there's extra food that's going to be able to support that population. Well, then if you have all these raccoons living in this area, because there's so much of this food that's around now, they're going to get overcrowded. Disease is going to spread. You're going to see things like rabies, and there are a ton of other diseases that they can spread too, like distemper. And not only can people get these diseases, but like your pets can also get them too. So responsibly managing animal populations, even if you're not trapping them for fur or food, but even if you're just doing it to like manage populations, to control disease, to prevent agriculture damage, those things are all pretty important too. And at the end of the day, even with that information that I just gave you, you still might not like the idea of trapping, and that's completely okay. You're entitled to your own opinions, regardless of whether or not they're right or wrong. However, it is kind of irresponsible to suggest that something's bad, even though every metric that I've just explained today says it's beneficial in some way, shape, or form. Some people are like pro-hunting and anti-trapping, which kind of bothers me. I feel like we should be on the same side. Like, we're both out there, we're both harvesting wild game, managing wildlife population. We're just doing it in different ways that aren't really all that different. And let's say you're just like, I'm still not really sure about how I feel about trapping. If you're a history buff, that's pretty much how America was founded. The first people to move west were fur trappers. The first people to like really settle and explore North America were fur trappers. So without trapping, there was like no incentive to move out west. And obviously, once people did get out west, they found other things like gold, silver. People started farming, but none of that would have been possible without mountain men moved out west, started trapping, and brought some Western civilization to the untamed wilderness, which is pretty cool. Another argument a lot of people will make in regards to trapping is that it's bad because you're not using the meat from the animals you catch, which isn't 100% true. There's a lot of trappers that eat beaver meat. A lot of people eat raccoon. I've eaten raccoon. I don't eat every raccoon I catch, but I have eaten it before. Down south, possum's a pretty popular thing from my understanding. I wouldn't know, but so I've heard. Because like I said, with my Burger King Cup ecosystem example, trapping is taking animals out of the population that are pretty much just going to die anyway from things like starvation, disease, getting hit by a car. And in the case of like starvation and disease, those both take weeks, maybe months for an animal to actually succumb to those things, whereas trapping, they get caught in the trap sometime at night, and then that next morning or sometime during the day, trapper comes around, checks his traps, dispatches said animal, and their suffering that is already not as bad as people think it to be is over within like less than 12 hours. But yeah, like I said, there's a lot of really negative comments. I was actually getting some like, I don't want to say death threats, because they wasn't really threatening me with death. I made a video where I got sprayed by a skunk, and there's people saying like, you should have gotten worse. I hope it was a different kind of spray. Like, I'm not sure what he was talking about. I don't know if he's talking about pepper spray, but I feel like skunk spray right to the face, pepper spray right to the face are probably neck and neck. I've never been pepper sprayed, but I would imagine it's up there. There's people saying they wanted me to get bitten by a skunk. Like, what if I had rabies? I don't want to get rabies. There's a lot of things that piss me off on YouTube too. I'm not saying like, yeah, I hope you get bitten by a rabid skunk and keel over and die. You know, that's kind of messed up. It's not cool. If you're a person who was against trapping and then you watch this and you kind of have a little bit of a different perspective, leave a comment down below. And if you're one of those people who has more questions, leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer it, either in a video or if I can, I'll just respond to your comment directly. But it is starting to rain. It's getting dark. There's pizza in the house, so I have no reason to make this any longer than I have. Don't be vegan.